Disclaimer. Before we get into it, everything you hear on this show is based on real experience, real deals, real decisions, real outcomes. But it is not advice for your situation. Real estate and investment decisions carry risk. What worked for us may not work for you. Talk to your attorney, your CPA, your financial advisor. Know your numbers before you move. Now let's get into it.
All right. So, Andrew, thank you for joining me today. We are excited to talk to you. Andrew Slocum is the founder of Green Development Company. And so he's turning overlooked properties into ADUs and infill, naturally affordable housing. He's doing fire rebuilds and turning that all into productive housing across Southern California. He's also the CEO of Southern California Attainable Housing, and so pushing to expand attainable housing across the region. So today, Andrew is here to show us his path from high earner to generational wealth. And so thank you so much, Andrew, for coming and spending some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jared. I've been watching your podcast, and I was excited when I got the invite to come and talk with you. So I'm happy to be here and to get into it, to share a little bit of the story and the path I have. Hopefully, it sparks some interest from people. I've really been talking to a lot of the youth and people who see like our online presence and are looking at, wow, there's all these people with these cars and these houses, and just thinking you just instantly get there. And the real ones know that it took a lot to even get to the point where you can, start having the life that you dream of and creating the generational wealth that we can hand down to our kids.
So tell us just a little bit about what made you start investing. Like, what was that journey to starting investing?
I would say the push was as a service business. And Green Development Company started as a service business that was like a fee-based consultancy for people that wanted to build housing and just didn't know certain things, whether it be new state law or just had money and didn't know what to do. So it started as a service business, but I felt that you really can't be strong at what you do unless you actually do it. And that was really what pushed me to be an investor, is to take the money that I've earned, my income, and put it towards the investments that my clients are doing so that I can stand aside them and make the decisions that they're making and understand the entire process versus just doing the scope that I'm good at and staying in that lane. A lot of it is exploring and understanding, like, what are all the pieces of the puzzle, not just this one piece that I do.
For sure. And so when did you get into the development space in general? Like, and what drove you there?
It was really took off in 2019. There was a group of people at a networking event that asked me if I wanted to work on a city request for proposals, and we submitted for that and we won. And during that time frame, I had learned that there's these like state laws that are changing the way developers work and the way houses are made. And I took that opportunity to start seeing if other people, other developers, other people in the industry were using it. And I think you'll notice this as well. Most people don't know what we're even talking about. It starts to become a conversation 4 or 5 years later, but the people like yourself that are on the cutting edge, it's people just like have no idea what you're talking about. And so a lot of it was explaining to people the way you did things before isn't the way that it has to be now. And it's an evolving world, especially in California, especially with housing.
And before that, like, what was your job description? What were you doing prior to 2019?
I would say not much. There was a period of my life that I was very lost, and would say that when I look back on it now, it was a fear of failure, which meant that I also don't start doing anything. So to me, I was hiding that fear of failure by not starting anything. and really not doing much because I was scared if I don't succeed. And I didn't even know what success looked like. So it was just this fear. And there's a lot of dark times and a lot of times that just weren't, something that I would even, most people, if I told them that story, would not know that I lived through that life. Right. And so eventually I decided that you can't live a life afraid of not failing by not even starting. That's the true failure. It's to not even try. And that was what the change of life for me was from this fear of failure, this living this life that you just aren't proud of, to at least going out there and trying and shooting your shot. And if you miss, that's okay, because that's part of the success, is the shots you miss.
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. Like there's a lot of thought out there, especially with social media right now. It's like this thought of, like you said at the beginning, people looking at this and being like, oh, okay, like I just want to be there, with skipping all of the failure. And it's like, actually, the failure is how you get there. You're going to iterate and reiterate. And, there's a lot of conversation surrounding, successful people don't just learn from other people's mistakes, right? Like they actually take the opportunity to basically get into this spot where they can iterate off of that mistake, right? Like there's this bigger thought process than just being like, oh, let's avoid that. It's like, okay, what went wrong? Like, what can I learn from that? Not just like, hey, I'm afraid, so I avoid that thing. It's like, what part of that thesis didn't work? And it's, it's interesting. I was listening to this podcast a little bit ago about a guy in Silicon Valley that was raising capital for some startup through like VC. And he failed like miserably, and he lost like $1 billion or something like that. And also, like, the people that were backing him were like, awesome, here's $5 billion, like go out and let's learn from that and figure out like what we're actually going to do, and so like this whole thought process. Now there's like, we look at these things and we're like, well, that's insanity. But
Right.
also, one thing that I have learned is that specifically, especially the larger capital providers and the most successful people, are going to acknowledge that piece, that it's not whether or not we're going to fail. We are going to fail. And also, when we fail on a project, does that mean we're done? Like, or does that mean that we learned something that we don't do anymore and now we keep moving? So I think that that's, it's one of the fundamentals, that just even to be an entrepreneur is one thing, but definitely, um, Alex Hermosi talks about this a lot, and it's that thought process. Like if you're afraid to fail, then you're not going to grow. Like if you're not willing to look stupid for a few years, then you're never going to be wildly successful, because there is lots of that has to come in order to get anywhere meaningful. Like, so I appreciate that a lot. So it sounds like in 2019 you started going into this service business, and what was the, and started, like you said, you were pointing out to people there's different paths, you can use these laws, it doesn't have to be the same. And so what was like the point, as you were helping as a service provider to those people, that really shifted for you to start making, taking that investment seriously and being like, hey, I am going to be a part of that and participate?
Yeah, it's really interesting because there is, like a imposter syndrome. And for me, I was in a lot of meetings in development calls in positions where the owner of massive companies are saying, Andrew, what do we do here? And I'm like, oh wow, okay, I'm in the position to make these decisions. You shouldn't be asking me that, but in reality, like I was the only one sometimes that knew what I was talking about, even when I didn't feel like I knew what I was talking about. And so that was really the push, is when you have this theory and you're like, this is what it says we can do, but you haven't done it yet. You just don't get out of that position of feeling like you're an imposter or like you don't belong. And then when you've done it, it completely changes. I have a friend and a mentor. His name's Ricardo Pagan, and when I was talking about like how do I get from this place where I don't feel like I belong, even though I do, to where I do, and he said, do it 3 times. Execute 3 deals of your own, and then you'll know. You'll make mistakes. You'll have success. You'll get through it. Hopefully, you don't lose too much money, but even if you do, that's fine because you'll get through it. And then after that, that is when you'll change over to where you are doing the investments that you are fine with. I used a lot of my own capital in the beginning. I think I would have potentially asked other friends and family before sooner and done that sooner. I was again just afraid of making a mistake with someone else's money, and so I was just using my own. But that I would say that was when the change is where I decided I didn't want to feel that imposter anymore, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to practice what I was preaching and say, not only do I know you can do this, I've done it myself, and I can show you where I've done it.
100%. I think it's a valuable part of my own story as well. And I tell this to people all the time. It's like, I will not ask you to do something that I do not do myself. Like, if I don't invest in this, if I don't put my money into these deals, I won't tell you you should put yours. And so, from a scalability standpoint, that can't be the thing, right? It can't be like, hey, I'm going to put my money in every deal. Like, unless you have like $1 bajillion, um, then you may not be able to do that. Especially the more scale, like you get into hundreds and thousands of units, like you have to be able to use other people's money, but you at least have to have been in that position, from my perspective, of risking your own money prior to starting to scale and take on larger pools of capital. Um, and so the first ADU that I ever did was mine, right? Like, and the first multiple ADUs that I ever did were mine. So one of the things that I like to ask, and this is back to that thought process of pushing into the pain and screwing up. So most people early on hit some sort of a wall. So what was that for you? Like, where was there this thing where you're like, oh crap? Like, was there any moment early on where you're like, I don't know if we're gonna make it through?
I think there's a few of them. Like as a service-based business, that happens all the time to me. If I didn't get a call that week, I feel like it's all over. Even though that's nowhere near the truth. I have enough work to last a lifetime, it feels like. But that never really goes away. Um, I would say to that there was a point where you are needing to put in more capital towards the project because now it's just you, and you are the person that you have to look to. There isn't someone else that's going to take care of it, it's you. And so that also becomes a motivation to put yourself in a position where you can handle those things, and you don't always know how you're going to do it. You might get a capital call where you need to put more money into a project, and sometimes you have no idea how it's going to happen, but you just have to know that you're going to make it happen. And I think that's a trait that you learn. And I think it's also maybe ingrained in some of our DNA where we just are a little naive or maybe a little like not, okay in the head, but we just know that we will make it happen. And there isn't a no that we'll take as an answer. There's just a hurdle that we have to get over or wall we have to run through. And maybe we hit the wall 3 times before we get through it. But that was something that I had in me, but it grew and it grew. And that is also
Yeah.
part of my success is as that grows more and more and that level of confidence, but it's competence as well because we're doing it. We're not just preaching it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know, like, even I look back to my own self 5 years ago or 6 years ago as I was starting kind of in the space, and I would call these attorneys to help me or some consultant that, like, and they're like, well, I don't know, but usually, and I'm like, at that time, I look back and I had the capability to read the laws just the way that they did, right?
Yep.
But for some reason, like, I deferred so much authority to those people. And to be fair, like, now I look at it, and when people call me with the same kind of question, I'm like, no, for sure, 100% you can do this and it will totally work. But it's because I've, like, taken the punches 50,000 times.
Yes.
So, like, I know what can and can't be done. That doesn't mean it's going to be fun. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be a fight, but it does mean that it's possible. And that practitioner thought process, the repetition, I think, is the thing. And so early on, so we've talked a little bit about some of, like, that fear and self doubt and challenges. Were were there any wrong assumptions that you had made up front that you had to push through?
Yeah, I think one of the ones that I'm still working on, and I don't know if this is a personal trait or just learning experience, but I think choosing partners was something that was very difficult for me and still remains. Um, and the way you choose partners, but when I in 2019, 2021, I picked a partner because I felt that this partner had some skill set that I didn't have and I couldn't get. They were a project manager for a construction firm in New York working on giant projects. And I felt like, oh, I've never built anything, so I have to have a partner that does this because I have no idea how to do it. And I ended up giving too much value to that than it really needed to be. And it ended up holding me back. And I know that because the minute that I released that partnership, my income, my productivity, everything skyrocketed 3, 4 times what I had done. The total amount of time we were together, I did that the next year. So I did 3 years, 3 times as much in 1 year because it was just not the right fit. And it was me thinking self doubt that I just wasn't capable of learning this in the time that it took. But when you look back, we've taught ourselves where we're at now because there isn't a school on reading assembly bills and senate bills and building housing. It's not there. We taught us this, so why would we not be able to teach us the rest of it? And so also, talking about how that continues to be something hard. I think what I'm learning right now is really reading the person and finding out their values. I think later in life, I put down a list of what my values are as a person. And then you can take that and translate that into what values another person you want to be associated should have.
100%. Oh, I mean, I couldn't, like, identify with the things that you just said more, um, in multiple ways, but I you can teach, like, skills, right? Like, and it's funny because, like, you got, like, co-work or whatever, and, like, your AI now learns skills, right? So you can teach those things, so you can teach them to people. It is very difficult slash impossible to teach integrity. Like, and it's very difficult from my perspective to instill many of the values now. Um, there are things that can be taught for sure. Like, there are new ways of thinking, and one of your thought processes is a value that you've had to learn and develop, which is, like, I can take the shots, right? Like, I am capable, I am worthy of growing and doing more. But one of the things that you said that really resonated with me towards partnership is, like, how when you released that partnership, there was massive growth. I had a similar situation with somebody that I was in partnership with on specific deals, but had been doing business with a long time, and realizing that that for me was a massive constraint because of the emotional energy and time that it sucked from me, um, for a small percentage of my business. And when I released that, like everything else opened up. And yes, like the projects and all of things got better, but the people around me that are my business partners and just the whole system was better and felt better and so much lighter. And then the capital that we attracted that was similar to, or 3, 4x the capital that I was employing with that partner, like, was just better capital. Like, meaning the conversations that we have surrounding it, the forward-looking opportunities, like, and the scalability of those kinds of relationships was so much better. And the constraint was like, well, it was looking inward and being like, it's okay. You're not for everybody. And that person that I released also has gone on to do nothing more. Right. And
I can
like,
feel you there.
so they were doing a ton of business from their side with us. They were a small portion of our business, but the amount of mind share that they held was very high. And so I think that that thought process of being in alignment with the values of the people, if you would not be okay with me treating you that way, then you should not treat me that way. Like, that thought process is very much the thing. And so, like, judging that, like some action that somebody's taken, or the way that you get treated consistent, like those are important thoughts. And the other thing that I feel like is so valuable towards what you're saying is that at the point that you release those things, what ends up happening, or what I've seen happen for me and for others, is the people that you were not doing business with before, that you could be doing business with, are attracted to you. Like,
Right.
other people that are out there like you are out there. Like, they're out there and they may be attracted and want to do business with you. But if you're so caught up and focused on what you're doing with somebody else, you don't even have the opportunity to connect. So
Well,
I love that thought.
I want to give you your flowers, and I know that it just didn't happen, but you can tell that it comes from experience, because now where you're at and the people you are that you surround yourself with, spending time with you and your team, like you can tell that everyone around you to a certain extent like shares some of the same values. They're family oriented. Like, there's just a lot there that shows why it works, and it's working. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's not that constraint that you had before when you didn't have that same thing. And it comes from that lesson you learned from that, and then you start seeing, okay, what happened there and what can we do to improve it. And then, exactly like you said, it becomes magnetic, and the people before that wouldn't necessarily come your way are now, they come into your orbit no matter what. It's unavoidable. They're just spinning around you, and it collides no matter what. There's just no choice, because it's this attraction.
No, and that's it. Is like, you just magnetize the better relationships because you've already decided what's not for you. And so I have then the next question, kind of like spinning out of that, is how did you, or like, I guess, when would you say that you feel like you built your confidence as the investor and stopped feeling like imposter? And like, I want to frame that with, like, every day there's still new pieces that I feel like an imposter on. You're
Yeah,
talking
right.
about some of the ADU projects. I'm like, yeah, but some of the larger stuff, like, it does, as you step into that new space, I can acknowledge that it still can feel like that. But is there like something that was pivotal for you where it's like, at this point I felt like, okay, I actually have this, like, and you
Yes,
had
there
that
there
confidence?
was. There was, and I have to. Sometimes it frustrates me, but it's a good thing. The few times I've asked for money, I've never had to ask more than one person. Every time, and the first time they say yes. So, and I say what I preface that like I felt like you needed to like go out there and talk to 10 people and get rejected and then like really pitch them and do it. And instead it was like, hey, here's this project. It's amazing. I need X amount of dollars. They say, okay. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. And so I was almost frustrated by this feeling of saying yes because then I still felt like I was an imposter because I didn't fight for it enough, or like I didn't do 10 rounds in the ring and we didn't box, and then I really showed that I'm the guy. It was just a yes. Like I didn't deserve it in a way because it was too easy or too simple. But then the next time it kind of happened the same way, and I started to realize that it isn't that it's just luck or something. It's because this is a real thing and what we're doing here is real, and it's an investment that people want to be a part of. When it really changed was working on, there's a project that I was working on that's a 51 unit affordable housing project in South LA. And my partnership is with a very high net worth individual. Came to him and asked him, and he said yes. And he wanted to build a world class model of building these types of projects. And to him, world class meant the most expensive attorneys possible. And we went back and forth for like 8 months on the, like, we'd finish one document and another document coming. And when I'm sitting in the same room having a conversation to a guy who's had a exit in hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're just there having the same conversation, negotiating and getting things done and signed, I realized that it's not just luck, and it's not just I ask and people just say yes. It's there is a competency there, and it comes from the effort putting into understanding what you're doing and the confidence of doing it because you've done it before and you'll be able to do it again. So that was where it changed, when I was sitting in a room with someone that I had a mutual respect for because of what they've accomplished in business, and saying, I am right next to them, at least at this, right? In other ways, I would be eaten alive. I'm not doing a VC exit, with Jeff Bezos, but still, like, today,
sure.
for this thing, we are right here. And that's when it really clicked to me that this is the thing, and I'm here and I'm in the arena fighting, and it doesn't matter if I go 9 rounds.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that that Obama, I've seen a clip, and he said it a few different times, but he was on a podcast talking about like this thought process of graduating into these rooms, like, and his thought process was simple. It's like, look, I've gone into these rooms with these fancy people with the big degrees and the big titles. And he's like, and then I'm just sitting there talking to him and listening to him and being like, you know what? These guys aren't shit. He's like, they're not special. I can be here. And like that thought process and that confidence, I think, comes to you after some of these experiences that, you know, I want to say from my own experience, like getting into some of those bigger rooms and then having the conversations, it's like, hey, this person, I'm the same person I was before I walked in this room. Also, when I walk out of the room, like I'm a different person. And the different person has nothing to do with my knowledge of the thing that I know how to do. It has everything to do with how I feel about my position in the world and like what I'm able to accomplish and who I'm worthy of being around. And so the more that we get into this position of feeling like we belong, yes, we have to be competent at what we do. Like you want to get in the room and not knowing what you're talking about, you don't want to do that. At the same time, there's this other thing that I think is really interesting that I've seen is this curiosity and willingness to learn from people that are ahead of me in life, or where I would view them ahead of me, like the people that I know that are the smartest and the wealthiest are the people that are always curious.
Yes.
And so it's okay to get into the room and not know the answer to the question as well. So if we're going to have to trip up, if we're going to have to like finally feel like we can get into the position in those rooms and go 9 rounds, then the question is like, well, why not do it sooner than later? So I like that, and feeling like, hey, that's just another person that puts on their pants one leg at a time. And also, when I get to be around that person, what do I get to pick up from them? How do they hold themselves? Like, how do they talk to their attorney? How do they use like that resource? And so I think that those are important things that we can pick up in those situations. And so I love that is that turning point where you realize like, hey, I belong in this room,
Yes.
right? And just because I'm really smart at this thing, I got a ton of things that I can learn from these people. And that curiosity, I think, is one of the things that can really drive us into new levels in life, is being able to learn from those people that have done amazing things, but also understanding that most of those people that did amazing things, back to your thing, like I get eaten alive on the VC, like Jeff Bezos exit. Well, I mean, yes, maybe that is very true, but
Or
they
maybe
probably acknowledging that they probably felt like that when they took their first exit,
absolutely.
right? Like they weren't
Right.
experts at that. And so they had some skill that they belonged in the room for, but it's not the thing that you do. And so that's a fun part of the process, is having like that discovery. And so one of the things that like I want to wrap up with is, if you zoom out now and look at this 30,000-foot view, today, what does generational wealth mean to you versus when you first started? And like, how has your journey changed that perspective for you?
Um, Obviously, very still learning a lot of this, but I would say the change for me is there's being an earner and making money. Then there is where you put that to where that earns more. And then there's also the protection of that, and you're protecting those assets from whatever it may be that you're building your fortress of. And I think that's the evolution that I've had as an investor, working into individual, is generating the income. Then where do you put it? Because we don't leave it in the bank, but also there's sometimes we're very risk tolerant, and maybe sometimes we're not as much. So to diversify that, and then also how to protect it and to have it in places where it's safe so that it can go for the test of time. I look at, you'll drive by places and there'll be like an estate, like the Huntington Library, where this family built this trust and a system that's self-sustaining. And then to me, that's the goal, is to build this ecosystem that is self-sustaining and creates a positive impact. It doesn't have to be a massive impact, but something that generates positivity when we're done. That is the generational part of it to me. I absolutely want my family to be taken care of, but it's also, I think we have a duty to humanity to leave something behind that can help other people as well. Right now, it's talking to kids that are very lost and see like these things that are just so out of the normal people's reach, and they're down on themselves. And I see that I'm like, there is things that we can do in this life that we can create that will live longer than us and leave that positive message. So that's what it means to me, and that's where I want to leave. What that actually looks like, we'll see, but that's the goal, is to create a generational wealth that pays dividends to society in areas that I felt that have helped me, or maybe I wish I had growing up. And that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I would say that I mean, I think that's just an amazing example. And it really does actually get to speak to where you're existing within your life right now. Um, and I say that because like that is something that has shifted for me over the last couple of years, where it's like it's fine to get to the spot where you know that you're going to be taken care of and you know your kids are going to be taken care of. And I see like the true pivot in generational wealth is not just are my kids going to have enough money to give to their kids from what I did, but like what is the impact on the world from what I do? And not like so that, you know, you mentioned the Huntington Library, but that bears the name of Huntington. And look, and I think that is lovely if that's part of people's legacy that they want to do that. I love what we do as developers so much because we are creating these affordable homes, like market rate affordable homes that will benefit people that will never know our names.
Right.
They'll never know what we did. They'll never
Yeah.
know who we are, but the impact is there. And in as much as I have the opportunity to do that, and I'm aligned with people, my partners in my company, and other people like yourself that are focused on these things, you know, like who cares if anybody knows my name in 100 years if they have a house that they get to live in that my company built that ultimately was out there to put better things in the world and better options. And so that's where I see, regardless of what the dollar amount is, the thought process out there, the more people that we get in the world that are focused on generational wealth from that perspective for the impact, not for the aggrandizement, but just like how do we make our world a better place? It makes me so happy. And that's all I want. I just want to surround myself with a billion people like that. And then we can actually see the things that we want for this world. And I think that that is the best answer that anybody could ever give. And one of the reasons that I was so attracted to having you on here. I, for anybody that's still here listening, Andrew and I got the opportunity to spend a week together a couple weeks ago over in Spain on a housing delegation, and I got to know him and his fiance a little bit better. And like it is impactful to me to go around and meet other people that are doing things, but are also just are human beings that I like and I want to be around and that have similar values to me. And like any way that I could ever support Andrew, or I also know that he could support me, like that's just it's an amazing thing to be able to do because there are people out there in this world that do care way more about the full impact. It's not just about um, you know what we can put in our bank account for the moment. And so that I think that's so impactful. So I love that take, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share a bit of your journey with us. And yeah, so that being said, um, if people are interested in connecting with you and like learning more about you, what you're doing, or your projects, or investing with you, or consultancy, or any of the things that you offer, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, it can be one of three ways, and maybe it's all three of them. But my phone number is 310-467-9329. My email is andrew at greendev.co, not .com. If you put the M, I won't get it. Someone else does, and who that Andrew is, but it doesn't get shot back. Or Instagram, Andrew R. Slocum. It's Slocum, and that's a place where I like to share my projects, my cats, my cars. So it's where you get to feel like we're doing it, but also who the person is behind it. And that's what I really love about the ability of social media is to like share the complete person, not just a shiny presentation of like, here's my perfect picture. It's sometimes it's gritty and sometimes it's me just having a bad day and my cat's there and I feel good, or maybe it's a massive project. It's all of those things. So you can find me there. We are raising money for projects all the time. Right now, we're rebuilding homes in Altadena, and that's a really solid opportunity for impact and investment. There's affordable housing projects. There's all kinds of things we're working on, but also just as a person for guidance, consultancy, stepping into Sacramento and changing laws. So if you have an idea of that should be a law, let me know. I am in the rooms with assembly members and senators, and if there's something that needs to be fixed, I will do what I can to put it out there and let's fix it, because I get so frustrated by the things that we have to go through in this job that make no sense. And so I couldn't not be there to influence it anymore. I can't just sit on the sidelines. I have to go there and this high agency and make these changes.
Well, I appreciate that, and I mean, we feel the same. Like fixing these broken systems, like regardless of what I leave in capital, that recycles and helps people in the future. The things that we change that fix broken systems, which is half of your vision, like it's a lot of what you do, and we're participating in the same thing every day. Practitioners like us that actually fix stuff, because not just because it helps us, because it's actually broken.
Yep.
Like so necessary in this space. So appreciate that. And so yeah, please reach out to Andrew if you have questions on what he does. And
thank you for having me, Jared.
thank you.
One last thing before you go. This show covers real estate development, middle housing, and investment strategy. All of it is based on real experience. None of it is personalized advice. Every deal, every market, every capital structure is different. Consult a licensed professional before making any financial or investment decision. Real estate investing involves risk, including loss of capital. We share what we know. You decide what to do with it. See you on next episode.